Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Fulfill Truth podcast.
Mhm.
This is my podcast, and the reason why I created this is to be able to talk about uncomfortable conversations for a wealthier life. Today, I have the pleasure of having Diego Ruiz,
Mhm.
who's a young entrepreneur. And full disclosure, he's my son, and we kind of started this journey together. I really feel that it will be excellent for him to be in this podcast and to be able to discuss his journey because I feel that a lot of young people out there, or even people who are just starting in the entrepreneurial life, should hear his story because he's been doing this for over a year now. So, welcome, Diego, to the podcast. Thank you for being our guest here today. And let's just start with basic question. Why don't you do a quick introduction and tell us about yourself?
Yeah, a little bit about me. I'm 21 years old. We've been in sub two for about a year. The whole reason we joined was because I started dabbling into real estate and learning about it back when I was 19. If you remember that, started reading more books, and then we went to a meetup, Bigger Pockets in Orlando. We saw the man Pace there, and we just decided to jump in.
What
So
is Sub 2 for the people who might not know what the Sub 2 community is?
Sub 2 community is a community you buy into, Pace's community. It's people from all over, every side of the transaction of real estate, from the lender to transaction coordinator, people who raise capital, people who are private money lenders, anyone you can think of. That's a big community all around USA. As soon as you join that, you're connected to people all over. A lot of my good friends are in other states, virtual friends, and those are the people that I work with.
Perfect. Thank you for that. That makes sense. And I agree with you. I have been in Sub 2 just like you. Although my path is different than yours. You're doing more of the what I call the harder work, in essence of the you know knuckle to the ground kind of work, the phone calls, the hustle side. I'm focusing more on the investment side because I'm older and I don't have patience to be talking to people on the phone as you do. And
Yeah.
by the way, you're doing really good.
Mhm.
So give yourself a pat on the back.
Thank you.
And so that is what Sub Two is. Sub Two is a community to help you find your niche, or what they call their avatars in the real estate community. However, this podcast is more also on the entrepreneurial side, and why it is that my philosophy has changed in the sense of you don't have to always work a 9 to 5 job. You should be always looking at other streams of income. I believe in not just getting up and um, going to work every single day. The wash, rinse, and repeat cycle, day in, day out, day in, day out. And so that was my mentality. It hit me about 2 years ago that well, I worked in a hospital, and every day I walked in, I looked up at that building, and all I thought about was like, I'm doing the same thing over and over, deja vu. And give Diego here a lot of kudos. He pushed me into taking the next steps in the entrepreneurial side. And we're pushing each other. He is extremely uncomfortable in doing this podcast right now, but
Yeah.
he's doing it. He's doing it. He's a handsome kid and he's going to do fine. And so, anyways, we want to just kind of tell our story. So, love that we're in the Subto community, have gained a lot of connections, networking, learned a whole bunch. And even to this point of having our own podcast, this is an extension of doing that. So this is all about you, Diego, and I want to ask you some questions so we can learn about you. Okay,
All right.
uh, nothing complicated. Okay, no SAT kind of crap. So don't worry about that. All right. Um, so tell me, what inspired you to begin your journey into financial independence?
What inspired me was, of course, how people fall for watching everyone on social media, FOMO, fear of missing out. That
Hmm.
kind of was a huge factor for me, but it kind of drove me because I saw the potential that people my age have. They just don't have the knowledge and resources to get there. And you just have to push yourself out there to do it. And it's a mindset. People don't want to wake up every day, get into that routine of the daily battle, especially being on the phones. always being told no. But then there's always that one, yeah, that'll happen the beginning of the day or at the end of the day that just changes your feeling for that day. So just seeing people out there doing it, especially people who are younger than me, it's just there's no excuse for you to not be able to jump in. It doesn't take money. Of course, once you get into the business side, there's always the cost of money in doing business, the cost of doing business. But that's when you build up that capital to figure it out. You just got to provide value to people and it comes to you.
Perfect. Now, you have history of starting your own businesses. Can you tell us what kind of businesses you had in the past?
Well, just one. When we first moved out here, I started a window cleaning business. And I don't know if everyone knows, we are in Texas, Dallas, Texas. So we're Californians moving out here. And we moved kind of at the worst time, which is right before summer. And we weren't used to 100+ degree weather. We were used for the hottest it would get in Monterey was like 70 degrees. So I just jumped into it, never knew how to door knock or sales, didn't know anything about sales, but somehow figured out I was doing it. But doing it so much in the summer and just getting your teeth kicked in the heat, I just wasn't mentally there. But that's what kind of snowballed into becoming a door knocker for sales. Um, Being a door knocker has taught me so much. Obviously, I didn't make a lot of sales. I didn't make any sales, but getting my teeth kicked in doing that transitioned me into wholesaling and figuring out real estate and being great on the phones. So
So, will you recommend somebody who's watching this to do the door knocking and just go and, in essence, like you're saying, get your teeth kicked in?
100%. I feel like people who want to get into sales are sheltered when they just think it's all about the phones. If you if you go out there on the doors, it really changes your perspective on how to be a better salesman. And everyone has a door knocker coming to their house. You view them different. You see their side, and it's like, okay, that's why they're doing this. Just it makes you stronger.
Have you heard of any interesting stories of people that you talk to that have been door knockers? Even like people that have knocked on our doors.
Yeah, I've met a bunch of people. I met someone from Canada who got sponsorship to come down here and door knock. I met a person a little bit older than me who's got a family doing it. There's
Okay.
people from all backgrounds can do it.
So, learning the hard way, and as you said, getting your teeth kicked in, the door knocking. How do you feel that experience helped you get to where you're at now in regards to doing the phone calls and the cold calling?
Well, first, it made me realize I hate talking to people on the doors.
That's good.
Being outside all day, I figured out, I wanted to figure out like there's got to be a better way than having to stand out here all day, just grind to make a couple sales when you can just do it from your house and from a phone and you can make double that.
Okay. So, one of the things that you mentioned was that, when you were younger, you had the FOMO, right?
Mhm.
And you and I have talked about all those people that put themselves out in TikTok and Instagram and all that stuff, and how
Yep.
they're posing in front of a Lamborghini and the private jets and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Do you feel that's an accurate portrayal of what a young man goes through at the beginning?
It's not. And a lot of people who post that content, you got to look behind the scenes. They probably rented it out. They're probably struggling trying to figure it out, but they just had this crazy idea like, let's make this like marketing scheme to attract these people. And I've met people who fall for that. And it really sucks that people aren't strong enough mentally to see that, not everything's true that's on social media.
And so, what would be your advice to some young person, that's looking at that and saying, I want that Lamborghini, I want that private jet, who's like 18, 17, 19 years old? What would you tell them?
I'd say keep that as fuel for you. That's definitely this next step, but you have to figure out the steps on how to get there. And that's not going to happen in the first few years. Or who knows, depending on the business you're doing and who you meet, it could happen. But just having that as a goal is the wrong reason, and you're not going to ever achieve it.
So you're saying don't go chasing the shiny object, don't go chasing the money. Just what? Put in the work.
Just fall in love with the work. When you fall in
Okay.
love with the work, the money
And
comes.
what are your thoughts about a community, having people around you?
Having being in a community was honestly life changing. I know we've talked about that many times. Um, we both went out of our comfort zone to go to a meetup November 2023, and through that, I met this person, two people, and started wholesaling, which is something we'll talk about later. But going to that meetup, meeting the people, a month later, I started working with them and figuring out how to cold call. And then a month later, I do my first deal. So it just snowballed into this game that we're all playing right now, and it's just falling in love with it.
Okay. What do you mean by a game? What do you define what game that you're falling in love with?
Falling in love with the hustle. It's there's daily battles. It's hard, but falling in love with the satisfaction of knowing you went through all this work, and it's just you're creating that future now. You know,
So there's nothing true as those quick scheme, rich schemes to go out and like buy this scores, pay $2,000, and next week you're gonna have $1 million. You're saying that that's not true.
it's not real.
So you have to put in the work.
You have to put in the work.
Okay,
Yeah.
so all you young people or you people who are starting, here's living proof. Don't fall for that crap. That's a bunch of BS. And I said that many times in the YouTube channel that I have. Put in the work, put in the time, get your knuckles dirty, like Diego said, get your teeth kicked in.
Yeah.
And that's what makes you tough. You need to build a thick skin in this business. Okay. So you have financial plans, you have financial goals. So a person your age or somebody starting new, what would you recommend to them in regards to practical steps that someone can start taking today to do to have a smarter plan in fulfilling a or completing or reaching a life in regards to the investment strategies and stuff like that? Can you tell us? Do you do any investments or any financial planning? What kind of stuff do you do?
Well, how everyone gets started is stocks and figuring that out. I started that at 18, learning that from you. I think it's great to just, kind of create a safety net, starting with stocks when you're young, and then slowly building out into other things like real estate or, other businesses. Um, I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Sure. What do you think are the steps that somebody who's brand new should start taking in regards to getting to the next level in their financial planning? So you mentioned stocks, so
Mhm.
that's what you did. What else should they do?
Most important is just create a plan and try different things. Just I think the best thing is to fail. You gotta try sales, you gotta try real estate, e-commerce, everything. Just try starting a business and just fail, because learning how to fail is what, builds that success.
Now, what are your thoughts on discipline in regards to having your own business and stuff like that?
Discipline is the key. A lot of people ask me, and I see it on social media, how do you stay motivated? You stay motivated by being disciplined. That's something I'm still figuring out. We talk about all the time. Building discipline just creates that routine that, when you snap out of it, you kind of failed yourself mentally. And it's just, you gotta stay on track. When you build discipline in your mind and, doing it in the gym, I like working out. I think being in the gym, creating good habits, good eating habits, just compounds into other things in life, especially starting a business.
So you talked about the discipline component, and you talked about starting your own business and stuff like that. You position yourself in a place where you have that capacity, right? That you have a safety net, that you don't have to do a 9 to 5 job as a 21-year-old right now. What message would you say to that one kid or person that has to have a job, okay, that has to do the grind of working, getting up, going early, whatever it might be, a roofer or selling solar panels, mechanic, a doctor, or a student going to school, that
Mhm.
they want to do more than what they're doing right now. What would you recommend to those kind of people?
I think the most important thing is keeping your job. I before I even started figuring out business, ever since I started working since I was like 16 or 17 and just saving. I think in order for you to feel safe in investing, if you have, a rough background or there's family problems you got to deal with and you can't really take that step, just build a safety net first before going into there. But I have a friend who's in college who is starting a business. I know people who have families and they're my age and they're still in business. So it's kind of just planning out your day and taking that sacrifice of working after you have a job, working after you're in school, working before you're in school. There's
So
no
in
ex-
other words, there's no excuse.
there's no excuse.
If you have a goal of being financially stable, just shut up, stop complaining, get to work, do
Yeah.
the work.
I have a different background. I have a family who created, a little bit of freedom for themselves that I could just sit back and rely on my family and just work a job my whole life and be like, well, I'll have money later on in life, but I don't want to wait till later on. That's why you have to start when you're young and fail when you're young and just work. I worked two jobs before while still doing business. I went to school and figured out that wasn't for me. And that's what made me transition into figuring out business.
Okay, that's good to know that you had opportunities in different ways of trying to get a goal that you have in your mind. So, another question: what would you say is a common myth about building wealth that you would like to debunk or make sure or say that it's not true in your personal young man experience?
What's a myth about building wealth? Is that it's hard.
Okay,
I don't think it's hard.
explain that.
Building wealth, obviously I'm still in the stage of figuring that out. It's not hard to build wealth, but it all depends on your situation and your mindset. Because if you met someone who's like, let's talk to people my age. I've met people my age who are way better off than me, but reviewing their background and what they started with, it's all about just taking action and trying and being disciplined and going through the pains, having those bad nights. It's just pushing through those emotions of just being stuck. If you just stick to a goal, the wealth comes. It all is just a mindset shift.
So, what would you consider wealth? At
It-
least at your young 21-year-old brain in your mindset, what do you think is wealth?
Wealth is just being in love with what you're doing. Everyone has a different idea of wealth. I can travel if I want to because I'm smart with credit and savings and planning, like financial planning for myself. But that's something that took me like 3 years to figure out after turning 18. Wealth is different for everyone. My wealth in the future obviously is going to be having multiple houses, having passive income where I can just travel for free and do what I want in the world.
That's good. That's a very good mindset. Because I know you and I have talked about that. I've also believed the same thing. Um, wealth is different for everybody. The definition for wealth is different, and I think it's a fallacy that people have. This mindset of especially young people too, mainly young people, that wealth means having a big house, multiple cars, private jet. and travel every single weekend to Europe. That's not wealth. That's actually that's not true. Those are all liabilities. You know,
Yeah.
uh, I've always thought that wealth is really not how much you have, but how much you're worth. It's your
Yeah.
net worth, right? It's how much. It's simple math. How much money you're coming in versus how much you owe.
Yeah.
Your expenses versus your income. That's your net worth. And you can have a net worth of $100,000 and have zero debt, but you
Hmm.
got $100,000 in your account. Compare that to somebody who's got $200,000 in debt and maybe $50,000 in their checking account or whatever. They're negative 150.
Yeah.
They might drive the expensive cars, they might have the big house, but their net worth is crappy. And so I believe what you're saying, and I think I agree with you, is that your wealth is pretty much a mindset and it's very individual to that person.
Hmm.
Your wealth is unique to you. Don't compare wealth from other people to your situation. Would
Yeah.
that be a correct statement?
Definitely. Especially people who want to understand wealth. If you've never been to another country, those people are way happier than people like us in the United States. Everyone's view of wealth is different.
Yeah, and that's actually well stated. There's that is that like an old saying, or multiple sayings. That one person who's worried that they only have $500 in their bank account. Well, then there's that one person who has $0 in their bank account and they wish they had $500.
Yep.
That one person who's pissed off at the job. Well, there's that one person who doesn't have a job. That one person who's mad that the heating and the air conditioning prices are going up while that one person is homeless. So
Mm.
it's all relevant to where you're at. It's pretty much putting things into perspective. And I'm glad that you're seeing that as a young man. So, and I'm
Mm.
glad that that's a message that you send out to different people. Um, in regards to the uncomfortable conversations for a wealthier life, what would you say is a mistake you made early on in your path of being financially independent?
What was a mistake I made? Mistake I made was when I first saw traction and money coming in, was thinking, I don't have to work as hard anymore because I can travel and I'll make it back anyways later on. And that kind of nipped me in the butt. I'm back.
Explain. Tell us what happened. Tell us. Let us know.
So within the first months of this year, January to like January, January to like May, I was doing good amount of deals and then I took vacations, went to go visit friends and just kind of pushed off what I was doing because I thought to myself, I worked so hard these past few months. Let me try to just, take some vacation and relax. And it kind of, it shifted my mindset a little bit. I got back and I'm like, God, I want to do this again. I have to make these calls. I have to suffer and go through this stuff. And it's just what you have to do. Yeah, I went a few months again until probably these past like 2 months without doing deals. And now I'm back into the routine of, having the money come in.
So discipline, lack of discipline was your big mistake.
Yeah.
And you saw money coming in, you figure, I got this. I don't need to work for a while because I got money coming in.
Yeah.
And when you stop working, zero money kept coming in because you lost your traction.
Yep.
Okay. So in essence, then this is also another fallacy that people have, or an image that you are a young entrepreneur, right? That's your title. That entrepreneurs are rich and wealthy and the money comes in no matter what. The truth is that starting your own business or an entrepreneur is that old saying, like one of my bosses told me, um, if you don't work, you don't eat,
Yep.
right? If you're not out there hunting, you don't eat. And that happened to you. You had a big fat meal, and you're like, I'm fine.
Yeah.
I'll be okay. I'll go hunting later on. And
Mhm.
you're saying, nope, that doesn't happen.
Mhm. No.
Okay, that's good to know. Um, so have you had young people come talk to you or reach out to you when they see you on Facebook or in the community? Talk to you about it, like how you're doing.
I think that's my greatest trait now is being able to guide people who are my age. I've made posts about my success, about what has worked, what hasn't worked, and I've learned so much in a year compared to what people know in their 40s and their 50s because they never were in this position or put themselves in a position to learn real estate and business and what it's like to be an entrepreneur. So that's kind of what the whole community is like, being in sub two. It's all of the whole motto is being a go-giver and just bringing value to people. At first my value was working for people who are older than me, learning from them. And now my whole, you know, the whole goal for me from today's November or this month's November, from November until I'm, wealthy is to just give back to people who are my age, people who are younger, and seeing that I'm able to help these people and guide them and give them, little motivational speeches or tell them like, I understand what's going on in your life, but there's always a positive side. One story that I have is there was this guy on our team, on our wholesaling team. He was in California. He was dealing with girlfriend problems, family problems. Keep in mind, I never met this guy,
Hmm.
but one day he called me or I called him asking about it. And I just asked him these words, how are you doing? How are you? What's going on? And immediately he just broke down.
Oh goodness, what was going on with him?
As he was like his girlfriend problems. I don't want to talk about it, but he just had girlfriend problems, family problems that
Sure.
it's tough, especially being young and not knowing who to go to, who to reach out to. But it's just because I asked those simple words like, how are you? What's
So
going on?
after you talked to that gentleman, um, what was the end result? Did he was he able to get out of it and kind of like move forwards, feeling a little bit better?
Yeah, he was able to. The whole thing was I was like, told him to just reconnect with your family. And he
Hmm.
listened and he did it. And now he's actually, I think he started a business with his brother or a close cousin of his now, and they're doing something else.
Perfect. That's good. So then it's interesting point that you bring up. So then it's not always about business. It's not always about making money. It's about making connections and helping your fellow human out.
Yeah, just
And
bringing value to people.
and be humble.
Yes.
Humility is huge.
Mhm.
Perfect. Um, okay, so just a few more questions to get you going. To get as we're going here, learn a whole bunch about you. Um, what is your and your mindset in regards to financial freedom? Right? You kind of touched on it a little bit earlier on. How you and it's interesting because you're 21 and your career and this has been just over a year as an entrepreneur.
Hmm.
Uh, how would you say your mindset has changed from when you first started getting into the entrepreneur mentality to where you are today, November in 2024?
My mindset back then was just focused on saving and just, being a young, stupid 20, 19-year-old drinking and all that stuff, just partying and not worrying, to now if I go out, I regret it the day later. I feel bad and I like I say, I relapse into this just effect of why am I doing this? You know, now I actually care about maintaining discipline and being doing the business. making the calls. It's I think me now would look down on me 2 years ago and thank myself for actually taking action and hopping onto this journey.
Good. That's very well stated.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to give you the last question. I want you to think about what kind of piece of advice you would give somebody. So it's kind of 2 point question, right?
Mhm.
The younger people, right? The ones who are just starting out, who are, around your same age, 20s or so, 18 to 25, 26,
Yeah.
because that's kind of like the circle that you kind of move around with. So that group, and also somebody who's older, somebody who is out there doing the grind, who's out there like, I'm in my 30s, I'm in my 40s, I don't want to do this anymore. How is it that this young punk kid out there in Texas at 21 years old is succeeding and I can't? What would you, what kind of message would you give those people? What would you tell them?
I like that you asked me that because I've connected with both generations and I've been able to give advice and feedback to both generations. To your first question about people my age or younger, I think the most important thing is learning how to fail and overcoming that barrier. The, the most important thing is just taking action and not making any excuses. Because someone at our age, or not your, like my age, people my age, we have that luxury to fail at a young age because our parents didn't have that, or everyone's situation is different. Just being young and dumb. You just gotta take action and figure stuff out. I almost
Poop emoji.
yeah. Okay, so young people, just take action and be humble and become a sponge. Work for free. Switch the mindset from making money to bringing value to people because the money comes. And people older than me, you know, um, it all depends on your situation. If you have a family, bills have to be paid. It's hard, but just look back onto your life on what could have happened if you started at a younger age. Use that as motivation because if you put yourself in the shoes where you're capable of being in business, you should never want to give up because I'm sure at after turning your 30s and 40s, life goes by quick. I've talked to people who they're like, I was just in college 20 years
Hmm.
ago and it feels like it was yesterday. And I could have done this and I could have done that. The money could have looked like this, the money could have looked like that. It's for both generations is just keep going and don't put your pride to the side if you need to talk to someone, regardless of if you're a man or a woman reaching out. Just reach out to people, but make sure those people are giving you valuable feedback that you want to hear. Sometimes feedback that you don't want to hear. Just make sure that person is looking out for you.
Beautiful. Very well stated. That's
Mhm.
excellent advice that everybody needs to hear. Uh, how can people get a hold of you?
Are you gonna put it in the comment or like the link or anything?
No, you can tell
Facebook,
us.
my
Your
Facebook,
Facebooks. Okay.
yeah, Facebook, Instagram. I think both of them are Diego buys real estate. I'm pretty active on that. I'll sometimes post if I've done deals or so, or just post about random stuff. But I'm always here to connect, and I want to give back to people who just want some advice.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure talking to you, of course. Always talking to you and getting in depth into your inner workings. And I think it's really good to have somebody at your current state and at your age to share your story to anybody who's going to be watching this. Um, Thank you for everybody watching our The Fulfilled Truth podcast with our guest, Diego Ruiz. Take care, everybody.